Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CQQC podcast. My name is Gabe, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Bryan and Nate, as always. And we're back for another episode. We're really looking forward to this one. This one is kind of following up from our great weekend of Quidditch. I know it sounds weird given the times we're in, but we did have Quidditch this weekend, and it was awesome. It was QuidCon 2021, a fantastic event put on by MLQ, QuidCon, USQ, IQA. Everyone in the Quidditch community came together. It was a fantastic event, and we're looking forward to talking about it. So what we're going to do for the podcast, we're going to have various guests come on and kind of give their insight from the weekend, whether it was kind of putting together events, being part of panels, et cetera, et cetera. So our first guest is going to be Jaime. For those that don't know, Jaime is the People Ops Director with MLQ, and we're excited to have him on. So welcome, Jaime.
You know, the knowledge, the transfer from like one generation to the next hasn't really been as smooth or as great as it could have been, right? Like we've seen a lot of great teams sort of lose key leadership members and sort of start to falter. And so this weekend, I think, was a really great opportunity for a lot of people to get together and transfer that knowledge onto the next generation of Quidditch, or people that are there, or just pick up tips, whether it was like organizational stuff or like ways to, you know, approach the sport and how to train better, or referee stuff, or whatever it was. The event kind of gave everyone a chance to sort of get what they needed to improve their team, their individual self, or whatever it is, right? So I was really excited to see it come back, and I was secretly like looking at all the documents for QuidCon that they were like working on. So I was like, oh, I'm really busy like with my MLQ work, but what are they doing? So I was always kind of looking at it, and every time we had a meeting, they would bring up their updates. It was just really interesting to hear how much work they were putting into this and how much effort they put into this, and to see it pay off was really, for all my coworkers at MLQ, was really great to see that, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, no, it was like I said, it was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was also great to see as well. There was a lot of Quid Canada representatives. Shout out to Yara for, honestly, it was a fantastic keynote on Friday night. Was there any sort of I don't know, like presentation or workshop or anything that you kind of got to attend that you thought really stood out for you?
Yeah, so I actually was a part of 3 different panels. One as a panelist, one as a moderator, and one as a. It was a. I don't. Can we swear? Because I don't even know if this is swear, but it was a shoot to shit kind of podcast-esque style moment where we just kind of talked about the best things that's happened over the last history of Quidditch. And so that one was a really fun one. I sat down with Justin, who is literally like an OG, like when they played like the first games of Quidditch, and Sarah Nealing. So we kind of just, she's an OG as well. She played for like the old school, like the first Team USA, played for LSU when they, I don't know if they're still good, so I'm not going to say that, but LSU when they were like a top team in the country. So it was really fun to sit down and just like hash out some fun moments, you know, all those old jokes that we make, like, oh, 12, 12, 12, like never forget, or Beantown Brawl, or just all these moments that like a lot of people didn't know about. Like, it was just fun to gossip and remember the old times, Ben and P shirtless, things like that. So that was a pretty fun moment. It was really just a social event. But my other 2 panels were a bit more serious. So I got to sit on one where we talked about Quidditch internationally and sort of just where it's at. So we sat down with myself as the moderator. We had Emma from QC, who also talked about Hong Kong. We had Kyle from Brazil. We had Stefan from Germany. We had Jandals from New Zealand, Australia, UK, kind of all over the place. So it was a pretty fun topic. We kind of got to talk about just the state of Quidditch, how it sort of boomed over in Europe. You know, the culture shock differences coming from like Australia to UK, which, and when we were talking about like QC things, they were like, oh my God, even that seems like a culture shock in and of itself. So it was fun to talk about what form Quidditch has taken in other parts of the world. Cause like here it's, you know, we're all pretty used to we have fall regionals, we have a couple tournaments, and then you go, but hearing about like a league style where you just go play like a double header on the weekend, I'm like, what? Like,
yeah,
you don't leave bruised and beaten and unable to walk for 3 months. Like,
did you happen to catch the there was a segment, I think it was like Q3 and Q5. I only saw a little bit because I was at work at the time, but I caught the end. And it's basically like 3-person and 5-person Quidditch. And apparently it was like growing in Mexico, and it's an idea to get like smaller teams. And I was like, that's insane. I had no idea this was going on. Like, it feels like we're stuck in a little bubble up here in Canada, but like there's a whole world of Quidditch going on outside. It's crazy.
I heard about that one. I didn't catch that session, but hearing like just the things that how people approach the sport and like things that they do in their countries to just sort of keep it fresh and not like so systematic of recruit, train for 2 weeks, go to a preliminary tournament, train really, really hard and don't get any footage out, and then go to regionals and win. Like it was a really different, hearing about the different experience was kind of fun. It makes some of the games lower stake and maybe a bit more fun. But just because they're lower stake doesn't mean they weren't trying hard to win. So it was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that panel. And then the next one I did was a tournament directing one. So sat down with me, Amanda Dallas, Emily Hickmont, and Liz Barcelos out on the West Coast. And we kind of just talked about, we've all been involved in planning major events, USQ, MOQ, QC, just big tournaments that are independent of the leagues. Fantasy tournaments, like you name it, across the four of us, we've hosted a tournament of that style. And so we kind of just sat down and talked about what goes into the planning, what you need to do, what's the timeline, what are the milestones, what do you need to do to sort of do it, how do you market an event, all these sort of things. And that one, I heard a lot of good feedback from everyone that they said that was one of their favorite like sessions for sort of the organizational part of Quidditch. And so anyone who should go and find footage of that, because I think it'll be really good for us to just have better events in Canada. To be perfectly honest, there's a lot of good information shared there.
I caught a little bit of like you speaking on that one, and I think the thing that caught me was I can't remember who else it was. It might have been Emily Hickmott, or there was someone else talking, and they're saying about how they're so like paranoid and they want to be really hands-on with everything, and you're like, nope, hands off. I trust people. They're gonna do their job. It's all good. And like, it's crazy, but like I remember when I think one of the first tournaments that you ran for regionals or nationals, I can't remember, was one of my first years, and I was like, yeah, like everything ran smoothly. And as a young person, I had no idea, but like it just like yeah everything's good. No idea.
What you don't know about that tournament is I was secretly losing my mind.
You kept it cool.
Was going wrong behind the scenes, but you never knew. You never knew. And so definitely that's a session people should go back and look at, because I'm tired of running tournaments. I just want to go have fun and watch. So someone else, it's your turn.
Absolutely.
But truly, there was a lot of good sessions, and Yara's keynote. I mean, we all know how amazing Yara is, and I don't know if she's going to be on this podcast later, but just listening to the talk in the MLQ Slack and everyone over there and the American discussion, because I kind of have to keep a pulse on that with the MLQ stuff. They're like, oh my God, Yara's amazing. Like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how do you not know about us Canadians? Like, like, how is she new to you? Like, she runs QC, she coaches the Raiders, like, she's one of the better players in the country. Like, can we put some respect on her name? So I'm glad to see that she's finally getting that, to be honest. So, yeah, essentially, I think all in all, great weekend. The planning part, like I said, there's a lot of work that went into it. So kudos to the team that really put a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of behind the scenes work, figuring out how to make Zooms work. And they did things with Zoom that I didn't even know were possible. So I was like, you go, I'm gonna just show up and look pretty. And so they made that really awesome, which was great. So definitely when they bring QuidCon back for the next edition, everyone should be definitely attending. Like, there's almost no reason to not attend for how easy they made it for everyone, right? So
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Like I said, I want to send a huge thanks for you and the rest of the team for kind of putting that together that weekend. Like I said, it was fantastic. And I know you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but is there plans for a QuidCon 2022?
I mean, like, I wouldn't expect it in like the next 2 months, but I would say there's rumblings that a lot of people are really happy with it. So we definitely have to do a little bit of a team and look at it and be like, hey, like, what went well, what went didn't go well because we don't want to dilute it too much. We don't want to force it every year. But if I guess if the desire for people to attend is high, we'll make it happen because obviously if it helps people, we'll want to do it again, right? So
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we'll be conscious of your time here. Jamie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your feedback from the event and your different panels. And hopefully we'll have you back on the podcast one day soon.
Yeah, awesome. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks, Jamie.
Bye.
Thanks, Jamie.
All right, awesome. So thank you so much again, Jamie, for coming on the podcast. And we're going to start with our second guest. We have Darren Bell. So Darren Bell is the current standing president of Carleton Ravens Quidditch. He is returning guest to the podcast. And he's going to talk about his experience for the weekend. So welcome back, Darren.
Oh, it's great to be back, guys. Oh, I love coming on to the program with you guys. It's great to talk Quidditch. You know, I can talk forever about this stuff. So always a pleasure to be back.
Awesome. Thanks for coming. And so we're just you wanted to come on the podcast and just talk a little bit about your experience with QuidCon, maybe some of the panels and workshops you kind of attended.
Yeah. I was super hyped up for QuidCon coming into this. It was like, this was my first QuidCon that I've actually been at, and being somebody who loves just like on the side, just talking about Quidditch, this was like the dream weekend for me. Just being able to just like sit there and just absorb all the like everything that everybody had to offer. It was absolutely amazing throughout the entire weekend. So obviously being a university student, I couldn't see them all the ones that I absolutely wanted to, but I'm going to see if I can try to get some of the recordings or something and try to see everything. But so the main ones that I saw that like really stood out to me was the apparel, like brand design type thing. Yeah. Chaser workshop I loved. The gameplay, like the coaching sort of like workshop type thing. Those were kind of my favorite ones. And the tournament or organization where Jamie was on. Yeah. That one, I love that one. So that was really, really, really cool. Especially like, you know, being a president and then going into the next, when we get back to playing in person again, you know, being able to run those tournaments and, even when they were talking about like film and whatnot. Oh, I love that one. I think it's like they had Billy. Oh, I'm gonna mess it up. Like Billy Quack or Billy Quack.
Billy Quash, I believe. I think it's
Quash. Oh my gosh, I butchered that. I am so sorry.
I might be wrong as well.
Okay.
I think he's too busy with Sports Center. Like that guy's hit it huge. It's incredible.
I don't know, man. Yeah, he's big. So it was really cool to get his input, even with him being like being so busy and whatnot with like Kansas City and stuff. So that was really cool to see from them and whatnot. One of the ones that I did get to be a part of that I found quite interesting was, or have some kind of like comments on, would probably be it was the Rising Stars panel. Yeah. The one thing when I was going into it, I was like, oh, this is going to be like top prospects from like around the world. This is going to be like super interesting. And just to hear like the differences in terms of like how each of them train and whatnot, and give people from different countries those type kind of like opportunities. But when I got there, like not to bash any of the panelists, they were great. They were phenomenal. Loved listening to them. And they're really good, and they gave some like good insight. But I feel like it was just a little bit disappointing just because they were all American. And I think that I know that we have some stars like, or rising stars up here in Canada. Shout out to like Savannah Campbell, David Kazam, like Cameron Power, like those types of people, and a bunch others, like, and some from Queens and stuff. Like, I believe that there is a few other people, you know, that in Canada. I'm not too familiar with like rising stars in terms of like European or those types of games, but I feel like there was a lot of opportunity that was kind of missed in terms of gaining exposure like around the world. Mm-hmm. But it was still an interesting panel nonetheless. I think that was just a little bit of a missed opportunity in terms of that panel. But so that was kind of like my first kind of impression, like from the QuidCon sort of thing. It was phenomenal to see and phenomenal to listen to, and like dining with the champions. That one was really cool because like dining with the champions and Chaser Workshop, because like some of my one of my favorite players is like Teddy Costa, who was one panelist from Chaser Workshop. So I'm getting to listen to him, and then Marty Bermudez, with Dining with the Champions, just because being a little bit of a smaller chaser myself, or just a smaller player in general, just kind of like listening to see what they have to say, and in terms of their training and their kind of mindset going into it all, was really cool. So yeah, that was absolutely phenomenal. Great weekend. So only one comment in terms of one of the panelists, but yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's awesome feedback, and it's funny to say that because I don't know if you got a chance to see the stats one. I know I was kind of torn because I think the stats one was going on at the same time as another really good one. I think it was I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was a marketing one or something along those lines, and I was torn. But like I was like, you know what, I'm gonna hop on it. I'm sure Bryan probably was.
Of course.
Yeah. But no, because Ethan had said part of the draw of stats and the importance of stats for Quidditch is going to be because I feel like as a sport we are very drawn to the names. So we're drawn to they I think they had a couple UK panelists on, and they had mentioned Augie Monroe like honestly half a dozen times at least. And like that's not that he's a phenomenal player. He's arguably one of the best in the world. But like just from I get where you're coming from in the sense that like we are so name driven that it gets to the point where it's kind of like there's a lot of like phenomenal like up and coming talent in the sport. But yeah, no, I know where you're coming from that. So that's a great feedback. Was there anything else you kind of want to throw in there before we wrap it up here?
Not totally entirely. Just a shout out to like the few panelists that I saw. Like I saw Yara and like Arjun and Jamie. They did an absolutely phenomenal job. Great job to you guys. And
Aaron McCready.
Was absolutely phenomenal to see you. And yeah, Aaron McCready. Yep. I'm just losing names right now, but thank you, Bryan, coming in with save, the clutch.
I watched that one as well. That was great. I think it was really interesting watching that and seeing being like the Canadian like main podcast besides Yara's keynote. It's weird because I thought like I watched through it and not like in any way disrespecting what Aaron and Arjun said, because they hit every point on the head. But I think in Canada we've heard a lot of those points before, and I think we've progressed over the years and improved on a lot of those stuff about concussion safety and return to play protocols and all that. And it was really interesting because I was like, yes, this makes complete sense. I think we obviously need to improve in QC a little bit here and there, and always be improving, right? But it was really interesting reading the comments because a lot of the places, I'm not sure if it was America or Europe or Australia or wherever, seeing some of these people are like, yeah, that's a great idea. I can't believe never thought about that. And it's like, okay, we're doing a good job up here in Canada. Like we're at least doing something with safety. Like it was great hearing those two like talk and really like hit the nail on the head. Like they completely nailed it, and yeah, it was great.
100%. Definitely right there. I think in terms of Canada, with people kind of like people like them are like leading the way and like kind of like trudging ahead in terms of like that is absolutely phenomenal for the sport, because like even though Quidditch is not like super name like up there on TSN or like football and whatnot, we still need to take care of the players as if they are. Like we need to put like putting the players' health and safety first. Even though like I say that, but like when you're in the game and you get hurt, you obviously you want to go back in, but keeping that up front and first and having and being the having people like that trudge the way for you is definitely phenomenal in terms of helping the sport grow. And I think hearing a panelist in terms of that way and hearing what they had to say really kind of like emphasized it still for me, as like again like as getting older and stuff and going into the Quidditch and starting to think about your health much more, because you do see those types of players that are like super good, but then injuries like it takes them out way before, like it takes them out in the middle of their prime, in terms of like concussions or other types of injuries. In terms of my own experience, there's been like rookies that I started with who were like top line beaters, you know, but then they had knee injuries that cost them to not play Quidditch anymore, which is very, very sad to see. But in terms of having people like that to trudge the way and to kind of like lead the way for the rest of the Quidditch community is absolutely phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, one question to wrap up here for you, Darren. If you were to run, we're asking already about QuidCon 2022, but if you were to run a panel in 2022, what do you think you would your topic on? If you could think of anything.
Oh man, I would want to run everything, man. Oh gosh, man. Does it have to be like an existing type thing?
No, like whatever you want, like anything. It's totally open.
Oh man!
If they came to you and like, you know what, Darren, you're gonna run a workshop, or you're gonna run a panel or something of interest in Quidditch, what would be your go-to?
I don't know. I think it would probably have to be something in terms of like how to be like outgoing and how to get your networking out in terms of the Quidditch community, and how to grow yourself and your team in terms of your networking, and how to use that to your advantage and how to use those leverages. I guess that would probably be something that I know enough about to do a panel on, in terms of that aspect. But yeah, would it be cool to do be invited to do like Rising Stars? Yeah, it would be. Do I think I'm in that like sort of category? I don't think I am yet. I think I got a long way to go to be kind of like classified for those, but and a lot more knowledge to do like Chaser Workshop or any of the types of those things. But yeah, I think I would do kind of like a networking and how to utilize your network in the Quidditch, and how to grow your name, or so to speak, in terms of the Quidditch community, your brand.
Yeah.
For both yourself and your team. So I guess it would kind of be a little bit of marketing as well.
Nice.
Cool. Awesome.
Beauty.
Well, thank you so much, Darren, for coming on. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and you're always welcome to come back for another episode someday soon.
Beauty. Thanks for having me, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much, Darren, for coming on. And we have our third and final guest for the evening on the podcast. It's Christos, another returning member of the podcast. Welcome back, Christos.
Thanks, Gabe. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So like I said, for the podcast, we're just kind of going over different sort of topics, going over QuidCon, maybe some of the highlights from your weekend, and maybe touch base on the kids panel as well.
Yeah, so I was one of the panelists. I was helping out with the Quidditch panel, and I thought it was really interesting just to talk with other people that have done things. There was a couple people that helped out, like writing the rule book for Quidditch in the States. I think it's 2.0, I think, for them. So just talking about like the different rule adaptations and the different things they use for different ages and what equipment they use. And I think that was the biggest part, was the equipment and like affordability versus sustainability and a lot of things like that. And I think the most interesting person there, in my opinion, was he's a teacher. I don't think he's ever played Quidditch, but I think he's a teacher, has been teaching for 15 or so years in the actual school system in the U.S. And he started a Quidditch program as a club because he found that there was kids that, they wanted to play sports, but they didn't want to play super competitively. So he started a club that was just open to all comers. And hearing him talk about that, especially for me as a teacher, trying to get the program started in schools was really interesting. And overall, I think that in other panels, they mentioned the idea of, like kids playing and trying to get them involved. I think that not only in our panel was it something that it was talked about, but other panels started to breach in the concept too. And I think it's a really important thing for the sustainability of our sport, which is why I took on the panel. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And on that point, though, Crystal, did you see the retention and recruitment episode? Is that the guy you're talking about?
I did not, actually. I did not see the retention and recruitment stuff. I heard really good things about it.
Yeah. So like the head panelist, forgive me if I mispronounce the name, but Alejo Enriquez, I think that's how you pronounce it. He was also a teacher as well, and he has I forgot to write down the name of the website, but it was like how to Quidditch, or like learning to play Quidditch. He has like a website that he's like designed, and one of the things he talked about, because he said he was doing his master's in Quidditch, and he talked about the escalator model and kind of like the
doing his master's in Quidditch is super cool.
Sorry, not bachelor's of Quidditch. It was like a master's in sport or something. Sport. Sorry.
Degrees.
I wish.
Degrees.
That's like way beyond a few of us.
No, I wish he was in Quidditch. But no, he talked about this thing called the escalator model, and it's kind of like, it's almost like a staircase. Like, I wish I could. I think we'll try to add a picture in here if we can. But basically, it was like you start with Quidditch, and then there's either access or no access. And he kind of like talked about how like at certain stages we kind of implement Quidditch, and he talked about it from like a teacher's perspective, and it was really, really cool. But yeah, kind of going along the lines of teaching Quidditch. But yeah, cool, awesome. Was there any panels that you kind of liked or stood out to you over the weekend that you kind of maybe saw?
So I watched I didn't watch the keeper one because I'm not as much of a keeper. I probably should have watched it anyway, but I watched not how to be a chaser, but like Chaser 101, I think is what it was called. Like the Chaser 101, Beater 101, Seeker 101. I watched those three. And I found they were all pretty interesting. I found the Beater one the most interesting because they had people all from all these different places. They had a beater from Mexico, which the one thing that did disappoint me, and this is actually a running theme that I've heard from a lot of people, is the representation was heavily from the US and Canada. And I know it's hard to get people from other countries. It's not super easy virtually to get all this done. But I was just happy in the beater one to see someone that wasn't just from US or, I think they're from Mexico. Or no, sorry, they were from Belgium. Sorry, they were on Team Belgium. They were a beater for
the beater one?
Medalist.
Oh.
Yeah, he was the beater.
That is Louis Lamette, who is also known as King Louis, one of the best beaters in the world. So Christos, you gotta pick up your game for your beater knowledge.
Hey man, I don't know. I've never been good at names. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
But
I just want to remember the names of my teammates, and I'll be okay.
That's fair. He is incredible, though. If anyone,
like just the stuff they were saying is just like next level, and I was able to ask a few. Like I asked a question about like catching. When is it relevant? When it's not? Like they actually answered it on the poll, and I was like, "Woo!" It's super awesome that they got to my question. But I just found that from female beaters to male beaters to beaters that typically play off ball to people that play with the bludger in their hand and talking about all the different strategies. Personally, I found that was one of the more formal ones and one of the most informative for me, especially as someone that I've been playing Quidditch for many years, but I switched from chasing to beating after like playing for 5 years. So I'm looking for anything to up my game, and I found it was really good. The Chaser and Seeker ones were pretty good too. But as I said, I found that it was just because the representation was a little more narrow, that it was a little harder to get a full grasp from a lot of different people in those. They were still really good. The beater one stood out to me.
To your point about I saw this today, so this is not my take in any way, and I didn't get the chance. I was at work, so I would have loved to watch more. Hopefully, I can get my hands on some Zoom links.
Recorded, right? They're gonna send out the recordings.
I'll check the Slack whenever I have a chance, and they have it all sent out. But one of the takes I saw from someone on the USQ Facebook page or something was and like. All respect to all these people. This is by no means like we're like taking them down. They did a bad job. Like everyone who did that, like we're happy to have this content. We need this content right now. Mm-hmm. But someone apparently asked in the chasing like 101 was how do you play off ball? And the players who were chasing, one of them was just like, yeah, I don't know because I don't play off ball. And I think it was a representation of not only the like panelists of who was there, but it's also to show like there's players who kind of pigeonhole themselves and like, yeah, I only play as a ball handler, and there's people who are only playing on the wing. Not
just players, coaches pigeonhole their own players. Brian. I find that coaches
absolutely.
Say, well, you know what, you're big, so you're going to play point, and you're never going to play anything else.
Absolutely.
And then instead of saying, well, I mean, this line needs this, and I want you to be on this line, so you're going to play this. It's almost like taking a hockey player and saying at a young age, you're just going to play, like, because I know people don't play Quidditch when they're 5. Like, when people play hockey when they're 5, they try them out all the positions, they figure it out. In Quidditch, we don't really do that. We say, oh, you're a chaser, you do this, there's your career, right?
Yeah,
we don't really give people a chance to try their stuff. And I've been blessed with being able to play every single position for a significant amount of time. Like, I played keeper for my first year, switched to chasing, did that for about 3 or 4 years. Beater practices occasionally, switched to beating for 2 years. I got to seek as well. So I've been blessed to be able to do everything, but I know some people are just, you're big, you keep. It's like, well, is that really it?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, yeah, I think it was just an interesting point. Yeah, it's just an interesting point.
Keeper, it's just that, but imagine if you had some beating experience too. It's like maybe Like Gola, for example. Gola was a keeper, and then they said, oh, well, let's try him at chasing. And I found that as a chaser, he was pretty lethal because he's just so tall. He's given the ball at the hoop, and no one can block it. And then he played beater, and now we have Gola beating, right? And now Gola is doing beating stuff. So like it goes to show that originally people were like, oh, Gola's 6'7", he's gotta keep. And then he started doing something else, and suddenly he's Team Canada material. Right?
I know when I'm on the Team Canada like practices, one of the like little lines that we have, I think it was like me, Haley Yap, I think it was Michael Wanless, and I think it was Cody for a little while or someone else. But the funny idea was like we were just kind of rolling out the idea of like how Michael Howard was just like, Bryan, you're not going to ball handle. We're going to leave it to Haley Yap, or I think it was Haley Yap or Cody. And I was like, cool. I'm going to be a stretch four like in basketball. I'm going to be a center going behind the hoop in the same way that Gola can just jump up and grab the ball. I was like, no one's going to really bully me out. Like, most likely you're going to put someone who's like behind the hoops. You're going to put one of your smaller players, typically your female or gender non-conforming player. Sure, you throw them back there, and it's like, okay, you have those exceptions like Rachel Heald, awesome, amazing player who absolutely made me like break my ankles when I played her. But like the average player who's in that position isn't going to be able to reach up in the same level that I am. They can absolutely take me down. It's happened many times. But me getting the ball is going to be a little bit harder for them to stop just based off height. So it's really interesting.
Similarly on that note.
Yep.
No, I was gonna say similarly on that note, there was another panel that I watched. It was related to coaching and like how to run practices and that kind of stuff. And that panel, I found there was a criminally low amount of talk on set plays, because I find that like some teams swear by we have these set plays and we do this, and some teams don't. And I found it interesting how the Americans like didn't really mention it at all. There wasn't really any set plays at all. It was more of a work off of what's happening in the moment kind of thing. And I don't know, like I don't know if I can ask that. What do you guys think about that? Because I find that having a set play or two could be pretty cool in Quidditch. I just find it's very underrepresented. I don't think Canadians really do it. I find the Western teams, when I played on Edmonton for the Nationals at one time, they had a bunch of plays. And a lot of the time they seem to work pretty well. So like, what do you guys think about that?
With the Queens, we had a couple set plays. We had like code names for them that we used, depending on the situation of the game that was going on. But I find for the most part, we kind of just focus, I guess, as a Quidditch in general, like on a strategy. It's not necessarily like a play, but just kind of like a style of play.
Yeah.
Like
sorry. Go ahead,
no,
Gabe.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Gabe.
No, I was just gonna say like for the most part, I find like especially in MLQ and just like American Quidditch in general, they're very much like built around just like fundamental like sporting IQ kind of, if that makes sense. Like they don't really, they kind of go with the flow. Like if they see an opportunity, they just kind of go for it. They don't really kind of go into with that mindset. With that being said, I think there is room for it. Like I'm by no means a basketball player, but I played basketball in high school, and there was quite a few like kind of defensive sets, and we had like a pressing option where we had it was like red, and we called it Red 12, where we had like a full court press. But again, it all comes down to the rules of the sport. So, I mean, I think there is room for it. I just think that we just kind of haven't got to that point where it's kind of like ingrained in our minds that okay, we're gonna run a set play, or because I think that's where like kind of the carryover from basketball comes from. But I don't know.
I know, like defensive sets are pretty. Like I find Quidditch we do use defensive sets. Most teams on their higher level do have defensive sets, but the offense is basically nothing. It's just like, okay, well, I mean, I have the ball, and then we have the two people here. We have one person on the hoops, and beaters do a thing, and chasers just talk to your beaters. Beaters talk to your chasers. And instead, like, why not have a set play where this beater does this and this chaser does this? Like, I just don't. At least in Eastern Quidditch, I basically have never seen it.
So I was gonna say like. I think it's really interesting, Gabe, you said the defensive set, because I didn't even think about that. I immediately went to think offense, right? So, like, defensively, we have, like, the teams have the hoop defense, the mark coverage where everyone covers someone, the 2-2. There's other ways, right? Cav ball is a thing that I don't even understand, or the Cav wall, I should say. That's another whole other thing. That's, like, U.S. specific. But I think when I played for Guelph, we had like our handoffs, we had our call for handoffs, which I think after a while is like, okay, cool. Once you find out what it is, it's not super useful because people are just like, oh, they're calling handoff or no handoff. Like, it's not like a big surprise, right? But I think playing for Otters, I realized it a little bit more, and playing Manatees a little bit, and playing Team Canada, I realized as well, was it's not always the play is the important thing, and I think Nate kind of alludes to that. It was more the play style and the philosophy of what your offense wants to do. Like, you can watch MLQ, and there's 15 different offensive philosophies. Boston versus Austin was the perfect example of it, or San Antonio versus us on Toronto.
Like,
you see completely different things.
Were so good.
Yeah, do
Some
play?
Of those games were like possibly the best ever I've ever seen and might ever see, because they were so close and they were so good to watch.
But like, do you want to play slow and steady? Do you want to run in transition? Do you want to play in half-court sets primarily? Do you want to focus on one-on-one matchups? Do you want to focus on like attracting and pick and pop? Like, I think it's not necessarily about making like X's and O's kind of idea, but making an understanding of, if someone does this, you go here, or you do this. Like, it's a very if or kind of philosophy, and I think that's the most adaptable, and I think, to me, that makes the most sense. I could be wrong. I don't know the answer, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. And like, but what we're talking about right here, like, I found that the coaching and stuff, but they didn't talk about the stuff we're talking about. I would have liked to hear this conversation we're having, where we're kind of talking about those more niche things. But they kind of narrowed it down to, like, how do you like run a practice and how do you do some basic stuff. I found that a lot of the stuff was not common knowledge, but I felt like they could have gone in more depth with some of the things with that one. But overall, like, I think my experience overall, I'd say was quite a positive one. I had a great time being a panelist and working with other people and coming up with the things to say, and actually doing the panel and interacting with people in the chat, and afterwards people asking me questions about things, and like with the rule sets I have with the kids, and like, how do you do the crease? What's the measurements? That kind of stuff. I enjoyed doing that and feeling like I helped a few people with that. And then listening to the other panels, like I said, overall, there was a few nitpicky things, but I think that the experience was quite positive, and I would definitely attend again. I hope they do it again. Maybe in person in the future. I don't know, but I honestly think that doing it virtually is almost just more accessible, because you can get everyone from everywhere.
I agree.
If you're doing it in person and they limit it to, if we're just going to do it in the States, like, Canadians are not going to be, I don't think most Canadians are going to be that gung-ho to go to QuidCon to travel that far just to do that. I think if you do it virtually, it's more accessible.
The biggest barrier we have is transportation.
Right? Yeah, so I think that, in my opinion, I think they've done it in person before, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong, but if they have done it in person, I would suggest just keep it virtual, even when we're not doing everything like this. I think it works pretty well.
I think I saw somewhere from one of the Slacks I'm a part of for QC or MLQ or whatever, and I think there was a previous one from like in Seattle in like 2012 or 2013 or something. I might be wrong, but it was like, there's been in-person ones before, which I think then sure cool, but like, I can't afford. I have a job. I'm a grown adult. I can't afford.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I love Quidditch, but I'm not going to travel 10 hours for a conference where we just talk and don't play. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I'm pretty darn into this, but not that much into it.
Yeah.
If I'm going to travel that far for Quidditch, I want to be playing a tournament, or like getting paid to ref a tournament, or have it be in a location where I can like go and do tourist stuff afterwards. But if it's just a random state in the U.S., I'm going to care less.
And I think that's what's great about doing it online. It provided everyone that access, like you said, and I think it was great, an absolute hit with that sense. So
I'd be curious to see how many people attended in total, and how much money they actually raised, and where the money's going. Like, does QC get any of that money, or is it all?
I have no idea. No idea. And
I'd like to know that. I feel like that's relevant information. I feel like we should, try to find a way to get that info, because I'd be really curious to see, did we have 100 people? Did we have 500 people? Did we have the same 20 people go to everything? Like, what did we have? And like, but like, I think most people that went to one panel probably went to 5 or 6 others for the most part. I feel like very few people went to one panel and didn't go to anything else.
Yeah.
And I think I'd imagine, I heard the donations from some people were like $5, $10, but if you had 100 people, how much of that money is going where? Like, they didn't really say when we did the donations where that money actually goes, right? So I'm concerned that QC, even though we volunteered, gets literally none of it, and that would be a shame. But I honestly also would not be surprised, unfortunately, if that were the case. We'll see.
I think the important thing is knowing that with this being online, we didn't like. Jamie probably knows a lot more than We do,
True.
like, as we talked to him before. But, like, having that accessibility online, it doesn't cost a lot. I'm from what I'm aware. So, like, having whoever donated donate, that's awesome. That's amazing. And hopefully they can use those resources for, like, a Quidditch scholarship for BIPOC or LGBTQ
You get a Quidditch
people.
scholarship at a grade
where
12? Woo, let's do it.
there's ideas out there to really help the community. If they put it toward that, awesome. If they have another idea, great. I assume they have ideas and they have that planned out. But
Yeah.
it was a great
You
thing, and I
mentioned
love to
Jamie.
have it.
You mentioned Jamie. If I were to watch one panel that I missed, I want to watch the How to Run a Tournament That Doesn't Suck.
Oh,
Jamie Lafrance.
you missed
Shout
out.
out tonight.
I didn't see
Everyone
that.
catch it.
Yeah.
I want to watch it because I feel like it's just gonna be the most like sassy. Like you're doing this, you're doing it wrong. Here's how to do it, right? Jamie is just great. I think he probably did an absolutely fantastic job. And that's like if I were to pick one panel that I wish I watched or had the chance to watch, it was definitely that
Mhm.
one. I didn't catch it, so yeah. For those of you watching, like this podcast here. I'm sure if you can find that one, it'd be an absolute blast to watch. That would be my suggestion if I were to pick one panel to watch.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much, Christos, for coming on. Lots of great insights there, and you're always welcome to come back on the podcast for another episode down the line.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Thanks.